Chronic Hoosier joins us, as always. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, doing well. Happy to be back. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure, um, rough weekend for Indiana on the football field, of course. But you've got Hoosier Hysteria to look forward to on one side, Michigan on the other, as in football. So I don't know if that's um, a 50-50 proposition of good and bad, like
It's
salt.
the homecoming hysteria weekend here in Bloomington, which in theory, I really love the pairing of the two events. Get a lot of folks back in town. Do it during a time of the year when the weather's still gorgeous, at least as far as homecoming hysteria is always going to be somewhere around this part of the calendar now. Unfortunate that there's not a little more enthusiasm around the football program following a tough loss, a really tough loss against Nebraska, and what that does to perhaps dim the hopes for some postseason eligibility for the football Hoosiers. And unfortunately, this lines up with that typical time of the year where a lot of the attention does drift towards basketball, partly due to the schedule, partly just due to the program's struggles. To remain competitive as the degree of difficulty increases, but the consequences increase. That was a tough loss against the worst defense in the Big Ten. Still a defense that is worse on average than Indiana's defense is this year. But that's the one thing I can't get out of my mouth right now. As bad as the offense was in the second half, just how poor the defense has been able to compete this season and give the offense a chance. Obviously, you can't put a goose egg up in the second half and expect to win a tie game at halftime. But unfortunately, the defense is giving this offense some holes that have proven insurmountable to dig out of.
Yeah, and that's been maybe the biggest shocker is because that's where you thought Indiana could be the most solid, especially with Tom Allen taking the reins back over with the veteran group in that secondary and the talent in that secondary. It's more than a little surprising that they have been hit so badly on the defensive side.
Yeah, no doubt. And you mentioned the secondary. That's proven to be one of Indiana's biggest liabilities this season. It's just really one of those head scratchers, trying to figure out how they could regress to this point at this part or at this moment in Tom Allen's tenure in this moment in so many of those leaders' careers here. That you would see just such a big drop off in production from the defensive backs here at Indiana.
Yeah, and now we've got to bring a team comes in that is, I don't know, it could be the best in the Big Ten. It's definitely one of the two best in the Big Ten, but between Ohio State and Michigan. Um, but Michigan has just been solid all year. They have just been train wrecking people with the running game and just running over them. And I don't know how Indiana is going to stop that. That has been a bugaboo for them. I don't know which has been worse, the run defense or the pass defense.
Well, it's funny because defensively, Indiana has the worst passing defense in the Big Ten, allowing an average of 277.8 yards per game. Rushing, Indiana's just moderately better. They're the 12th worst. Well, I guess they're ranked 12th in defense in the Big Ten right now, allowing 142 yards per game in rushing. I can imagine any quarterback room, any running back room that's looking at tape as they prepare to face Indiana is probably licking their chops right now at what an easier path to scoring Indiana's providing this season than what most of us would have expected from this group. And I'm not sure that there's any one answer. I think when I'm looking back at this game, I was going to rewatch it on Sunday. I was able to steal some sneaks during the day. My brother got married this Saturday earlier in the afternoon.
Congratulations.
Yes, great day for the family. Always happy to add more to the family and a great family we've added. Nevertheless, though, I was able to watch the game kind of sparingly on Saturday night, partly just due to frustration, particularly in the second half. Uh, just couldn't bring myself to it on Sunday. Um, and for a multitude of reasons, but I think what stuck with me was the fact that, what is this, year 7 for Tom Allen now, recognizing there's a
6, I think.
year 6, excuse me, as a head coach, 7 with the program. Um,
Yes.
uh, this team looks very disorganized. They look,
Could
they
not agree with you more.
they just look like a team that really doesn't know who they're playing with, that doesn't really know who they're calling plays for. And I guess that's to be expected when you put this many new faces up in the box, calling the plays, on the sideline, executing the plays, and all the way down the line. It looks like a program that's had a ton of turnover here recently, and that's exactly who Indiana is right now. And unfortunately, it continues to show very glaringly on tape. And I'm not sure that there's an easy fix that can be implemented at this point. And I'm not saying all hope is lost. I think we've seen some, moderate improvement, at least in spurts from, groups that I've been real heavy on, like the offensive line. But at the end of the day, the totality of it is this is a team that is showing a lack of talent and a glaring lack of depth of talent when it comes to their ability to field a competitive football team in the Big Ten. Because let's be honest here, if you can't get anything going in a second half in a tie ball game against a team like Nebraska, it really doesn't inspire a lot of confidence looking forward over the remainder of the schedule here for Indiana.
No, and especially the defense with Tom taking over and it really regressing again. I hate to say it, but that's a bad look.
Yeah, it is, and he in his press conference he mentioned the turnover disparity and their inability to generate those like they previously have, and I think that's certainly part of it. But this has long been a defense that has been known to give up some yardage, but kind of stiffen up once it got down into the red zone. Unfortunately, you've got to stop them before they get into the end zone in order to give you a chance to stiffen up. And this team has just allowed chunk play after chunk play after chunk play. Where it's really, really made it difficult to compete because they're giving up so much yardage so frequently, and then just the increasing pressure that puts on an offense that, let's be honest, um, you know, the second quarter was some of the best football that the offense has played this season. I felt like at times over at least the bulk of the quarter, but you know they still have not been able to play more than one half of one football game this season at a competitive level, and I think that's extraordinarily discouraging. Because let's be honest, I mean it's a 60-minute game. You got to play 4 quarters. You've got to be able to compete over the course of the entire game, and for a team that has really saved their best for the second half. Kudos to the staff for getting them out of the gate a little bit stronger, particularly for how they were able to close the first half at Lincoln. But just a complete goose egg in the second half is wholly unacceptable. And recognizing DJ Matthews and Cam Camper weren't available for Indiana. Those are the breaks. Every team's dealing with injuries. It's unfortunate that Indiana continues to find its top playmakers out. Um, but at the end of the day, you have to find a way to at least compete. You have to find a way to advance the ball to score some points in the second half. And Indiana was just wholly incapable of doing that and looked like a completely different team. But that's now par for the course for Indiana. We're used to seeing these wild swings from wholly ineffective to march down the field in 7 plays, get a critical score, right back to being completely ineffective again. And at the end of the day, that's just not going to cut it. And my big fear going into this Michigan game, this team's not going to let up at any point. That is not in Jim Harbaugh's nature. Make no mistake, he will absolutely put 70 on the board if he feels like his team has the chance against Indiana. And these guys are going to have to find a way to bow their backs, to grit their teeth, and to keep that from happening, because this is one of those games that has potential to get real ugly. And it's amazing how those types of games historically have really turned the tides of apathy in the stands. And it's just the last thing you want to see at this point in the season with so much football left to play. But they're going to have to find a way to compete if they want to inspire more of that confidence and keep it going for the remainder of the season.
This Friday, Hoosier Hysteria. That's always a big time. Back on the 30th, this is a team that I think was it CBS had them ranked like 13th or 14th, which that's doesn't mean jack, but they're ranked by most people's. I think that everyone's going to have them in a top 25. The women's team also ranked, the first time that this has ever happened. So this is a very, very unique Hoosier Hysteria with two teams that are going to come into the season ranked.
Yeah, it's a remarkable time and a complete 180 from what we're talking about in terms of the football program. Talk about not just having talent, but depth of talent. My biggest question going into the basketball season, how they going to spread these minutes around? I mean, realistically, when you look down the roster uh, at what Mike Woodson's going to be able to roll out this year, um, the depth that this roster seems to have at this point in the season is fascinating to me. Not the least of which is how's he going to manage those minutes? How's he going to keep his key guys happy? How's he going to continue to find room to develop a lot of this young talent he has? And how are the older guys going to hold their positions and hold their spots and hold their minutes against some of these newcomers coming in? So it's extraordinary time, certainly in Assembly Hall. Not the least of which with the women's basketball team, what looks to be another reload for Terry Morin, heading into this year with a ton of expectations, but a program that's been built now to kind of demand those expectations and embrace them. So can't wait to get that started. Wish we had a little more momentum on the other side of the parking lot, but it is what it is, man. It's October in Bloomington. It's not like we haven't been through this before.
Woody's second season, second Hoosier Hysteria last year. Isaiah Thomas made a great appearance. I wonder what special things could the fans expect this year? I wonder.
I'll tell you what, I am tickled pink to see IU alum, ESPN sports personality Courtney Cronin back in Bloomington. I had the privilege of watching her as a wee little pup here in the sports media program. Just one of those Swiss Army knives of a journalist. She is absolutely amazing, but she can truly, truly do it all. I remember watching that girl shoot her own shots, editing on the sidelines, whether it be, field hockey or I can't, I've just seen her all over the place. So to see her come back and get a chance to co-MC Hoosier Hysteria with another IU alum, Rhett Lewis, of NFL Network fame, it's going to be pretty cool. Pretty cool to see her take the stage, take the mic at center court, and get the season kicked off. And you got to forgive me. I know we got a big musical act coming in. I'm one of those guys showing my age here.
G Herbo, baby.
Yeah.
Don't forget about G Herbo.
Had to Google it. My kids told me.
Right there with me, brother.
They queued up a bunch of TikTok songs. I'm like, oh yeah, I totally know who this guy is. Obviously not by name, not by sight, but I recognize some of the tunes. So I'm excited that there's excitement back in the gym.
Well, I'm going to tell you, a friend of mine yesterday was saying, yeah, man, all the kids are fired up about that musical act. He didn't know who it was. I said, G Herbo? He said, yeah, man. He said, I don't know who the dude is. He said, but the kids are all jacked. I'm like, well, that's what it's about, man. It's about creating electricity for the students, electricity for the prospective players. They want to come into an environment that is electric, that is fun, and wins. Indiana has got all of that, minus the current winning, and that seems to be about to change. And if that does, Indiana's recruiting is just going to continue to head up like a rocket, I think.
No, and I think this is the natural progression that most schools have made. They continue to find ways to keep their events fresh, to keep their students engaged and excited throughout it. And that's what you do. That's what the players want. It's what the students want. And at the end of the day, it's what makes college fun. It's honestly what makes me and my wife still live in Bloomington is that energy that this town brings. And I know for some of the older set there at Assembly Hall, Lord knows Indiana Hoosiers love to cling to our traditions as much as anybody in the nation, and rightfully so. Don't get me wrong. I think there's something to be said for a lot of the traditions that we've established over the years in Assembly. But I am all for fun. I'm all for keeping the students energized and engaged. And not only are you bringing in G Herbo, we now have a sideline DJ. under contract for the remainder of the football and the basketball season, if I'm not mistaken, which is something that Indiana did not too terribly long ago with good friend DJ Unique.
Unique. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, it's not Matt coming back behind the turntables. Indiana is once again bringing back a DJ for its game day event. So I think a DJ G or DJ Gino, if I'm not mispronouncing that. Nevertheless, though, um, I think it's a good thing for everybody. And you know, those that want to complain, take a trip down to Cameron Indoor sometime. Tell me that that's not louder than most live music clubs you've ever been into in your life. I promise you, all the older folks survive it at decibels that I've never heard in a gym before, and you know it just adds to create an incredible home environment. So whatever it takes to keep everybody on their feet and at the top of their lungs, that's at the end of the day what makes Assembly Hall so special and so intimidating. So throw all the fuel on that fire you can, no matter who it
Yeah,
takes off.
I agree. I mean, I think Indiana has to find a balance between a little less band music and a little more up to date. The balance with the DJ, which apparently, since they have a DJ, I don't know how that's going to work. But yeah, that would be nice. During basketball games, there's a heavy band play.
And you know that's the balancing act. This debate just raged on over the weekend about what are bands and you know what's their role in college athletics. And I think you know at the end of the day, live music, live bands, brass bands, drums are a
Sound.
yeah, no, it's an integral part of the college experience. It's what does differentiate it from some of the pro sports leagues. But at the end of the day, I think there's a medium, a happy medium that can be achieved there between some of those traditional arrangements versus you know some live DJ input throughout the game, especially in pregame, halftime, and at you know other critical junctures. But I think Indiana is rightfully heading down that path, trying to figure out a way into the future and how they balance that.